Hey everyone, Adam and Andrew with It Takes Two Takes. We are here to talk about Season 2 of Warrior, Episode 3. This episode was very much sort of a middle chapter episode, even though we're on Episode 3. So Adam, and I don't know if you felt the same way, but let's be honest, like even the opening was a bit of a moment to tell us that this is a bit of a middle chapter in the sense that it doesn't open with the action. It opens with the action already happening, and Assam is basically done with his fight. And I think when you think middle chapter, you think about what's going to build up next. And that opening scene to me told me what that was going to be. Fight was done. We didn't get to see it. He talks to
Rosalita.
I thought her name was
Vega. Rosalita Vega.
He talks to Vega, who kind of hints at this.
Her full name is Rosalita
You're
Vega.
Right. Yes, I was thinking Vega. You're right about that. So Vega mentions this sort of international tournament that he can be involved in, which to us as viewers is telling us, yeah, this is normal fare for Assam now. You don't even need to see it. You know what happened here. But we also maybe have this international tournament. And again, that scene to me was, I went into this episode already thinking, oh, kind of out with the old, in with the new. This is going to be a bit of a build-up episode. I don't know if you felt the same way.
I did, and there's a little bit of a tension almost between them two, just on the fact that, you know, he tells her, you don't know me, and then she ends up saying, you don't know me either. So I feel like, you know, it was a little bit almost relationship building a little bit. Chow shows up also. It was a good start of the episode. I mean, fairly lengthy before the credits even started. You know, I mean, it took a little bit before we even got into the credits. It was good. It kind of set us that these particular pit fights they're not really important anymore. It's time to up the game.
I totally agree. That's exactly how I viewed it. And I want to be careful because I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I feel like naturally it does transition into yet another new character, which is Hong.
I don't know that it transitions into him very well. We can talk about him, but I don't know that transitions into him because that shows up a little bit later.
He's fresh off the boat. It kind of leads into Young June and Father June and their dynamic. But our first glimpse at Hong is he's kind of this needy, I want attention. Who are you? Let me just chat you up. And Assam wants nothing to do with the guy.
Well, and Assam is coming off now as kind of like a veteran.
Yes.
And Hong kind of is like the new green onion. But at the same time, you know, at that same moment, we got, you know, Young June and Father June having it out, and Young June saying, I thought I was the only one you could trust, and finding out that Father June is doing little bits of maneuvering without Young June even knowing about it, which is really bothering Young June.
Father June is already doing things without consulting him. Father June is potentially doing something that will eventually lead him to their little operation. Well, and again, building of things.
And Hong and these other Chinese that show up, they're not just fresh off the boat. They were specifically trained Hopway soldiers from China, because we see Hong later on in red and black, only not the same type of red and black. You know, more of a Chinese red and black than the more Americanized red and black. And Hong very much comes off very needy, very, you know, hey, I just want to be part of something. And he's an interesting dynamic of a character, that's for sure. Especially later on when we see him. When we see him, you know, at a toys place, because he says he needs to get some sticky, and he's not with a girl, which Assam doesn't really care about, right? You know, his attitude is you got other things to worry about than that. And then we get to see him
kind of backing his way into his sort of like progressive views of just like, I'm focused on this. I don't need to worry about that.
But let's face it, where Hong really wins them over is that alley fight.
That was incredible.
Yeah, that was absolutely when it was pointed out exactly who that was a rival Tong, and it's just like, oh, they are? Hold on a minute. And he goes and gets in that awesome fight, and we see his fighting style is completely different than Assam's. We see a great fight. We both see both Assam and Young Jun kind of turn around a little bit, right? like, I'm starting to like this guy, and he's our kind of crazy, type of deal.
I thought about that because I think it works out well for the story, wherever this may be going, in terms of him. He went from kind of third wheel to sort of, he's potentially kind of an additional person amongst their resources, amongst even their partnership potentially, right? That's the ceiling. But I thought about it because right before that moment, he kind of won them over there, but it's not like he kind of was prying and annoying them. But right before that scene, they kind of relinquish a little bit of patience for him. Like right. Even Assam says something, or Young Jun even says like, don't take it personally. And, and they kind of have that moment before he proves that he's potential, he's a valuable asset with that fight scene. So
I wonder though, if he's not maybe a little bit of a mole, supposed to kind of win Young Jun over, ultimately to kind of spy on what Young Jun is up to. I wonder about that because, he is Hopway from China. He is brand new. I wouldn't put it past Father Jun to think something is going on. I need to have someone looking at him, and I need someone that's going to, maybe catch him off guard. So it'll be interesting to see how Hong's character progresses throughout the rest of the season.
I could definitely see that. And Young Jun already has planted those seeds of, I don't know what to expect. And I need to be careful and I need to watch out for things. But I think they even mentioned with Hong too, it's like, this dude just might be kind of like nuts, but in a good way. So we'll see. Speaking of nuts, but maybe not in a good way.
Well, I was going to say, we early on had a confrontation between Mai Ling and Zing, where she's saying, you owe me money. And then we get a confrontation between Zing and Chow, where Chow doesn't really want to do anything with Zing, which then leads to Chow going to Mai Ling saying, get him away from me, which Mai Ling kind of dismisses as,
right,
you just filled the order. And then we see Li Yong and Chow having a conversation because, again, we're starting to see things between Mai Li and Li Yong aren't exactly as kosher because Li Yong's attitude is, that Chow's always been good for them and he should be treated well. Mm-hmm. And Mai Ling is starting to take the attitude of he's too helping everybody. So he's a problem, which is kind of the same attitude that Zing took too. So we're starting to see Zing and Mai Ling's personality almost, as far as their points of view, almost besides colliding against each other, almost being in sync a little bit about loyalties.
In sync in terms of loyalties and their view on the Tongs and, let's say, life in general, but even more specifically, I think they completely drilled it into the audience's head when she uses his exact phrase later in the episode from earlier, when he says, be thankful for your pain, it means you're still alive. She just quotes him, and Li Yong recognizes that. Li Yong is kind of that, he's kind of that old school, just that noble, he's got that air of, tradition and loyalty and respect. And Chow, as much as he is sort of this chameleon, at the end of the day, he even says, it's where loyalties have lied. He's always, essentially delivered when we, whatever we ask of him. So why mess up a good thing? And Zing is clearly establishing himself as really the big bad. I mean, this guy is just chaos, and he's involved everyone that we know from the show around him, similar to the way Chow has in an odd way. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. We kind of see how this is evolving, and I think Zing is sort of the center of the conflict, and we'll see how he just pulls everyone in, for better or worse.
It'll be interesting to see if Chow starts to lean more towards a toy and the Hopway because of the issues he's having with Mai Ling and Zing, right? That maybe he's figuring out maybe he can't stay as central as he wants, and he doesn't like the direction they're going, so he starts migrating the other way.
Yeah.
And that could be obviously bad for Mai Ling and Zing because he could easily set them up because everybody trusts Chow, right? You had some other interesting dynamics that happened. You had finally Sophie and Leary hooking up, but at the same time, Leary putting her in her place when she tries to well, she comes off as too entitled, and he kind of puts her in her place. Like, you have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. It may have seemed a bit predictable. It may have seemed a bit inconsequential to the overall story, the two of them hooking up. But I want to take a step back prior to that. I don't know if you caught this, but the fact that she was in the really the back office of the Banshee, and she was kind of looking at all the sort of this map that had all the factories that the coolies were working in. I walked away from that moment going, how did she not see Mercer Steele in that moment and know that was related?
I'm sure she probably did. The question is whether or not she does anything about it, right?
Right. Or and she conveniently ends up seducing him after that.
Or by seducing Leary, will that make him more hesitant about going after Mercer and because of her, right?
Making an exception, right?
Maybe he goes there last or something along those lines because of his attraction to her. So, that would be interesting to see. But then, speaking of Mercer, we had Penelope and the mayor squaring off in the office at Mercer.
She's continuously just one-upping her level of, just pushing back on the guy. It's some interesting scenes, especially when she's got kind of the upper class sitting around her and the way she just kind of just goes at it. Those are entertaining scenes.
But just the part in the office where it's just the mayor and Penelope and the deputy mayor, and the mayor flat out threatens her that he'll pull the contracts, right?
Yeah.
And right now we know that Mercer's not in a financial state to have that contract pulled. Sure. So now she's kind of in a pickle of what does she do? But yes, speaking of the dinner party with Nellie, that was an interesting scene where she pretty much, let them know she had no interest in just being a dutiful wife and finding herself another husband, socialite husband, and calling them all out basically as, guys who have hit the brothels themselves, right? And exactly. Penelope couldn't even, hold back her reaction on that, right? Yeah. Saying, that was hard to swallow. So I think it was a really interesting point about Nellie's character and the type of determination and force that she might be to reckon with, because she's got the money, she's got the influence, and she's definitely not interested in, backing down from the men who think that she ought to be doing something else, right?
Totally agree.
So I thought that was a great scene as well. And really, let's face it, where we really end up in this episode is the end in a lot of ways.
O'Hara and Lee.
But before we get to O'Hara and Lee, we had O'Hara still trying to collect.
Standing up to Zing.
Well, first he tries to collect, and he gets tempted with some sex, and he flat out turns her down.
But by the way, I feel like O'Hara would probably take that on, but I do feel like the fact that he was insulted, that he would have compromised his position as as an officer of the law, I think that sort of superseded or trumped the moment of what, the seduction.
I don't know. I so far he's very much shown himself to love his wife and his family. So I don't know that, we haven't seen him hanging out in any of the brothels. We haven't seen him going after anything on the side. So he might really be a legit family man who just has a gambling problem, right?
Could be.
But that little moment with her sparked him going to Zing and saying, I'm done, right? And here's the money. I more than paid up my debt. Zing telling him that's not how we work.
Yeah.
And that's what leads us to that end scene where, Zing's men show up to let him know how things are, right? And it looked like his son was absolutely going to die regardless of what O'Hara said if Lee hadn't shown back up because he forgot his notebook.
Well, yeah. Hang on. Yeah, because that to me, that conflict, that really last scene was the most impactful to me, and I presume that was the intent, right? To end it that way. So, yes, that moment where the camera pans and there's a knife to his son's neck and Lee coming to save the day, all of that was intense and awesome. And I find it interesting that aside from the moment where you have Hong having his moment where he's just like, taking a chain and destroying everyone around him. You don't get a lot of when I say action, I mean like martial arts, electric guitar playing in the background type martial art moment. This was a very cold, sloppily choreographed, just raw scene of physical altercation. If you didn't notice, the camera was frantic. There was moments of, it got to the point where a child was aiming a gun at someone. Just how disorganized and chaotic it felt, I thought was so well done compared. It was just completely bringing home the idea that like, this isn't what you've seen where people are doing roundhouse kicks to somebody's head. This is a family that is at a complete, risk. They are being threatened, and it completely played into that with the choreography, with the way it was shot. I loved that final scene and the way that they ended it on it. It was one of those moments, like in a positive way. I like credits roll, and I'm like, oh, you sons of bitches, oh, that was so good.
Well, I think, since you had kind of like the low rung soldiers, executing this order from Zing, they weren't the best fighters. Obviously, sure. O'Hare and Lee aren't the best physical fighters. Lee pops off two of them with his gun before that gets knocked out of his hand. We have this great struggle between O'Hare and one of the guys. And like you said, his son, at the top of the stairs, pointing the gun down. We get the wife joining in on the fight. And ultimately, she's the one who saves her own husband, shooting him. I thought it was a great fight. And I think this is going to lead to a confrontation between Lee and O'Hare, because obviously what O'Hare has gotten himself into has now gotten way worse. And Lee, I don't think, is going to be overly thrilled at the end of all this.
I don't know, but Lee, if it weren't for Lee, his son would have had his throat slit too. So I
think O'Hare is going to be thankful to Lee, but I don't think Lee is going to be very happy about how O'Hare's obvious gambling problem and what he's gotten himself into has now fed to his son almost being killed, and actually almost all of them being killed, by this, Chinese Tong,
For a moment there, I instinctively wanted to just wrap this up, but I want to throw in sort of a honorable mention in terms of moments. I do feel like it doesn't really deserve a whole lot of discussion, but it's worth a call out. And it's the fact that Buckley has some sort of Jack the Ripper vibe going on. And as much as we know, or as much as we don't know about this guy, between the carriage and picking up women, like there was this moment I was like, oh, he's about to murder somebody.
Right.
But it turns out it was just this hair washing scene that really didn't lead to anything that we know of yet.
Right.
I think the point is
he's got some sort of fetish
out there about this guy. He's out there. It could go in several directions.
If I was going to call out another moment, it'd be the fact that Lee went and got his revenge on the people that mugged him, right? He just stormed in there and just beat them until the bartender said, stop, here's your money, right?
Yeah, a little bit of a rage moment for him, for sure.
Yeah, so, it's definitely harkens back to the fact that Lee has got a little bit of an anger problem going on due to his addiction to laudanum and also his, head trauma from the previous season.
He was hacking away at a dead animal in the middle of the precinct.
We're only in episode 3. We still got 7 more episodes to go.
And we need every one of them to be able to...
Because we have had so much that have gone on in just 3 episodes that I'm so excited to see where the season continues to go. But yeah, it was only 3 episodes, and we've got so much that have happened. I think it's great. I can't wait for next week's episode. So
watch this show. I mean, look, I will continue to say it. I just can only hope that people are watching it and not watching us. Or if you are watching us, get out there, get on this, and come back and watch what we're talking about, and leave us comments. Subscribe.
I agree. Leave some comments, share the videos, let us know what you think. Yeah. All that usual stuff. We're going to keep this up because we're enjoying the season, so we're not stopping as far as this show's reviews go. And I can't wait.
Absolutely.
And with that, we thank you for joining us for another video, and tune in next time for another video from It Takes Two Takes.
Hey everyone, Andrew with It Takes Two Takes. We're playing some royalty-free music, so don't even bother Shazamming that one. We got videos over here I think you're gonna enjoy, and there's a button over here I'm gonna enjoy. Let's make this all work together, right? Please subscribe, check out what else we have going on. Thanks for watching.